I'm an architect with Breadloaf.
Oh, okay. Got a full house tonight.
Yeah, Suzanne's driving home, so she'll be there momentarily.
No, I was just looking at all the people we have joining us.
22 present count.
I'm sorry, what, Linda?
22 on the list right now.
Oh, well, I have my iPad, so I can only see 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Gotta check and see who I'm missing here. So are we waiting for Suzanne, Kim, or are you starting the meeting? You're on mute.
She just wanted to let me know that she was driving home, so she didn't say anything about starting the meeting, but I'm going to pull up the agenda to make sure I can follow along. I don't have control of the meeting, and at this point, I sort of need to know who's doing that.
Control meeting.
Control of the Zoom meeting.
Oh.
Usually it's Patrice.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's still the same, so.
Kim, it's Patrice tonight.
Thank you.
You bet.
My question. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:04. And I'm going to start it off with the introduction to board members as I see people in front of me. So Lorraine.
Lorraine Morse, representing Addison Central School District. I reside in Middlebury.
Steve.
Steve Rooney from Starksboro, representing the Mount Abe School District.
Thank you, Steve. Missy.
Missy Beckwith, representing the Workforce Investment Board.
And I'm looking for, I see Mike, but I don't think it's our Mike. I think it's somebody else.
Oh, we don't even have a quorum, do we?
Yeah. Missy?
Who's JCB?
You got me. Could JCB introduce themselves?
Hi, Janice Bosworth, former teacher at Hannaford Career Center.
Thank you, Janice. My name is Kim Farnham, and I'm the Community at Large member from the Mount Abraham School District. I don't see Nick anywhere.
Yeah, so we're not gonna be actually able to,
I'm not gonna be able to do much right now.
well, we can't approve the agenda because we need a quorum for that. I mean, I guess we could take visitor comments, right?
I think I need to clarify some of the people on this and who they are. And Mike, wherever you are.
Mike Adamant. I'm the special needs coordinator at the Career Center.
Thank you. I'll go through a few other people then while we're at it. Caitlin Riviere. Aaron. We got Jake Burnham is on, and Brenda Logie, and I see Gretchen, and I see Kelly Mills, and Lisa Rader. I see Cheryl Werner.
See
And
Nick's
Woody-
name. I see Nick's name up, Kim, but I don't see him. He's muted.
Okay. Nick, can you hear us?
Suzanne? Kate?
Somebody's got an open mic running too.
Yeah, if somebody could shut their mic off, that I would appreciate it. Thank
Okay,
you. And I see Woody Danforth and Cheryl Werner. I don't see her, but I have her name. And we have Middlebury Community Television, Gail Leach. No comment. And Denise?
Denise Senesac, Registrar, Hannaford Career Center.
Thank you, Denise. Dana Peterson.
Dana Peterson, Superintendent, Patricia Hannaford Regional Technical School District.
Thank you. I see Austin.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Austin Haynes, Business Manager.
Okay. And Rebecca Coffey.
I'm Becca Coffey. I'm a parent of a student at Hannaford Career Center.
Thank you.
So-
And, excuse me?
is Nick, did someone say Nick Costin was on here or not? No,
There he is.
No, it's Nick Cantrick, but Nick may have
Nick
joined us.
Cantrick's on. Nick Cantrick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Construction technology instructor at the Career Center.
Thank you. And Nick Costin?
Somebody.
You're okay.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Sorry, I have a new computer.
Can you hear us, Nick?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, great.
Sorry,
That's okay. And
my Zoom wasn't installed.
there you go. Then I have Eric St. John. Yeah, and you're muted. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Looks like his sound is not working. Eric St. John is Addison Repertory Theater teacher at the Career Center.
Thank you, Lisa.
Kim,
And-
Suzanne is on now.
Yes. Suzanne, so we're just going around doing introductions. I pretty much introduce the board and anybody else that's in front of me on the screen. And I think at this point with you and Nick, we do have a quorum, which we didn't have a couple minutes ago.
Okay.
And that is
And
about
I
as far as we've
apologize.
gotten.
I had technical difficulties on my end, so I'm on a very small screen, so I can't see a lot of people.
Okay.
So did you already call the meeting to order there, Kim?
At I think we were at 5:04.
Okay. So
But
then
Linda
did
can, Linda
we,
can correct me.
Did we do the motion to approve the agenda?
No, we went through introductions of board members and visitors. That's it.
Yeah, we didn't have a quorum,
Okay.
so we,
All right. So, I was looking for one person on here to see if he's on.
is 6 people a quorum, first of all, sure?
So there's 11 on the board. Christina is in Maine with family. Judd is on his way. He was on a job site as of, what time did he text me? 4:20. He's going to try to join on his phone while he's coming home from his job site. But since he hasn't joined in, I'm going to guess that he probably doesn't have enough bandwidth to do it right now. So, and then we're down 3 members that have not been appointed by other boards. So that's kind of where we're at. So I would say out of 11, and we have 6 of us, that's over half. So
Okay.
just
And it-
barely.
Okay, it only has to be more than half. It doesn't have to be from certain, districts or whatever. So as long as there's more than
Not
half.
that I'm-
Okay, all right, cool.
Okay. So, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as it is printed?
So moved.
Second.
And moved by Kim and seconded by Nick to approve the agenda as written. Is there any discussion on it? Seeing none, and I've got the chat window up, so I don't see any hands raised. We'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hands. Any abstentions? Any nays? Motion's passed. Do we know how many people are here for public comment to actually make a comment?
I am.
Could they possibly raise their hands on their Zoom? So I see Cheryl, Aaron, Gretchen. So did I miss? I have Cheryl, Aaron, and Gretchen. Were there any others that wish to make a comment?
Caitlin Revere.
She has her hand up.
Kate. Okay. Is there anyone else? So I am going to, based on the agenda, I am going to ask the board if they would wish to make a motion to keep limit on how long each public comment can be. And if they would like to do that, then I would ask for a motion from the board and we'll vote on it.
Suzanne, how much time you suggest would be appropriate per person?
2 minutes so that we can continue and stay within, I mean, I don't know if that would be my thought. I am willing to discuss with board.
Suzanne, can I?
Lorraine? Sorry, I'm on my
Yeah.
small computer, so I can't see everyone.
Yeah, no, I mean, considering if there was a really long list, I would say that seems appropriate, but given that there's only 4, I mean, I'm assuming that nobody is going to be, horribly long-winded. I would like to give people the opportunity to, if they've come to speak, I'd like to give them the opportunity to say what they feel they need to say and give them the time to do that, given, hoping that they will take into account, and not ramble on.
I agree with that.
Okay.
So do I.
So that being said, I'll start with Caitlin.
You mean Kate?
And again, the only other thing, Kate, the only other thing I'm going to remind people of is this is a public comment period. This is not a time to discuss personnel issues. If there are names mentioned, I will have to cut you off, especially when they would pertain to personnel. So please keep your comments out of executive session issues, which are personnel. So, Kate?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
If I can
Kate?
defer, if there's someone else who would rather go first or needs to go first.
Aaron?
Sure. If I can speak for just a moment. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. It's certainly heartening to hear some sentiment that you have a desire to, give us audience, and that is a heartening event. And I would like to just continue on behalf of the faculty at the Career Center. I'd like to continue to ask you for the board for an audience, an opportunity to discuss the challenges that we are experiencing. You are, of course, well aware of these challenges. We've given you, ample documentation. I understand that there are some constraints that certainly are beyond my scope of understanding because we're not a school board, but you can name the channel, you can name the time, you can just to sit down as human beings who are part of the same culture, who care about students, who care about each other and want to see success. I'm once again asking you to engage us in conversation. And, that's it. And, or some sort of a plan for improvement. Love to see some steps in that direction. So that's all I wanted to say. Just my usual asking of tangible, visible actions towards a sustainable future for our emotional state and ultimately the productivity of the Career Center. Thank you for hearing me, board.
Thank you. And so the other thing, again, I'll reiterate in public comment that it's not a back and forth. So I'll thank you for your comments and that is per statute. So that's not Suzanne just making up rules along the way. So Aaron, you just went. So I had Cheryl, Gretchen, and Kate. I don't know who wants to speak next.
I'd like to speak first, please. It's Gretchen.
And who is Gretchen? Okay.
Gretchen. Thank you for allowing me to voice my concerns. I do so with a sad heart. I am here to express my grave concerns about the job performance of the center's superintendent. I worked at the Career Center for 22 years, and since 2017, I have seen the fabric and the soul of the Career Center wilt and unravel, much due to the superintendent's poor leadership and management. In regards to leadership, the superintendent has demeanor that is humiliating and degrading, creating a tone that is very demoralizing.
Gretchen?
Yes?
Gretchen?
Yes?
So again, you have to keep your comments so that they're not executive session issues. And when you start talking about a person such as that, those are comments that would need to be brought to the board in an executive session, and they cannot be done in public session. He is our one employee, so those are personnel issues, and in the effort to keep things clean, that's the way we have to do things.
Okay. All right, then we'll go on to the second spiel. The superintendent has never spoken to me in any kind of rude or unprofessional manner. His way of approaching me was of avoidance. He would exclude me from important information, necessary meetings, and delaying needed paperwork so that it was difficult for me to get my job done completely. I have also, now I would like to speak about the superintendent's management skills, all lack thereof.
So again,
Okay.
these are all personnel issues, Gretchen. And so legally, personnel issues, we can't discuss out in the open.
Okay.
We have to bring those into executive session, and then once we talk about them in executive session, then we can come back out of executive session and make a motion to do something. But it would be the same thing as your job performance or my job performance. My boss would not discuss it with out in the public. So that's what I'm trying to get you to do with your comments. If you can make them general to the Career Center, but not specific to the person.
Well, that's the reason why we're here. It's specific to the person. All right, then this is what I'm going to start with my last statement, and I will make it short and sweet. I urge the board to reflect on all the previous complaints and stand up for change in leadership. You've heard us month after month, and it's always in executive session, I understand that. But we don't hear, we don't see any change at all. So it's your responsibility as a school board to keep our school successful, productive, and flourishing. It needs a change in leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl or Kate, you're the last two that had said you wanted to speak. I don't know who's going.
Cheryl.
Next, if you can hear me. Cheryl Werner, I'm
Is
a
that you,
Middlebury
Cheryl?
taxpayer, and can you hear me? Cheryl Werner.
You're cutting
Middlebury
in and out,
taxpayer,
Cheryl.
retired. Can anybody else hear me?
Cheryl, I've lost you again.
They could hear me earlier. Well, I don't know why you're losing me. Aaron's saying he can hear me. So it's on your end. Can other people hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Cheryl.
Crap.
I can hear you too.
Can I go ahead? Okay. Cheryl Werner, I'm a Middlebury taxpayer. I am a retired Hannaford Career Center teacher after 35 years and 4 different directors. And I'm here to recommend that the school board seriously consider searching for a new director, to find someone who is compatible with the values and teaching styles of our very talented Hannaford Career Center staff and teachers. The current management style is disrespectful, non-supportive, shows an inability to read people, and it's not allowing your staff or your teachers to perform to their best, and it's adversely affecting student learning. I can understand I can't go through examples I have, but we need a change in leadership style that listens to people, that supports them in their classroom, that is not demeaning, does not harass people, does not make people feel little or that they are not doing what they need to be doing. Too many good people on your staff and your teaching staff have left or wished they could, and that presents you with the idea that there is an issue, there is a problem, and it needs to be addressed. And I don't believe remediation is the answer. I think it needs to be a clean slate with a new person that can work with these very talented people, make them feel supported, make them feel like they have autonomy in their classrooms, and can allow them to do the best job they need to do for students and students in this career center. I fear for the life of the career center. I fear that it is going to go downhill and it will just disappear if some changes aren't made. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And then Kate was the last one.
Yeah, thanks, Suzanne. Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I have 4 quick things I think this board must know. The first is that I believe in tech ed, and I know it has the power to shape and change futures for all students. I saw a lot of opportunity when I left a position with a lot of seniority in MAUSD to join your faculty. I dumped my heart and soul into not only the job I was hired to do, but was so energized that I created an entirely new one so that I could tell everyone about how great your school was. And I crushed that job. My efforts resulted in, among many other things, an HCC promotional video, a bi-monthly digital newsletter, a robust multiple platform social media presence, record-breakingly attended open houses, tours and fundraising events with our state's movers and shakers, members of Governor Scott's cabinet coming to your building to check out your students' accomplishments, and a steady presence of positive coverage in the Addison Independent. Your most recent presence in the Independent, though, outlines exactly why exactly none of the things I just mentioned are happening. The way I was treated was inhumane and is absolutely unforgivable. You read about what happened to me. Everyone has. How I was isolated in a windowless office, made into such an outcast that no one knew what to say to me other than, "I'm so sorry this is happening to you." That eventually, I was just patronized, intimidated, harangued, belittled, lied to, threatened, bullied, and my personal space invaded. I was an educator at a small rural school in Middlebury, Vermont during the height of Me Too. I should have never, ever felt scared to come to work. And I did. I'm asking this board to stop looking the other way. You are hemorrhaging passionate and skilled employees like me at an unsustainable rate, and for no reason other than your insistence on maintaining the status quo, the shortcomings of which were made well aware of long before the Independent. You cannot in good faith ask taxpayers like me from Starksboro to approve an $8 million bond to upgrade a building that at this rate will have no teachers, no programs, and no students in no time and for no good reason. Please perform the most critical portion of your role as representatives to this board and secure qualified.
I am asking you as the board chair to please remember that what the rules were around public comment, and you've just violated them. There are reasons for public comment rules, and they are purposely to protect individuals that are employees of districts and such. And those are rules that we have to abide by. We can't just ignore them. I'm sorry if people do not agree with those, but those are by public statute. And they're there for a very specific reason. So I'm sorry that I had to cut you off, Kate, but I did say at the beginning that public comment could not be things that would be discussed in executive session. They could be global comments, but they cannot be one-on-one individual derogatory comments.
I didn't mention.
I thank you all
I didn't
for
mention
your
any
comments,
names.
and I want to let you know that we have heard everything that you have said, and that the board continues to work through these issues. I have a statement that is coming up a little bit later on, so if anybody would like to stay around and listen to it, you are more than welcome to. But I don't believe there is anybody else left for public comment. So at this point, we'll move on to correspondence.
So Suzanne, that I think is my turn. And under
Yes.
correspondence, we have several donations, but I will take those up later in our agenda and go over them. They are listed individually. We can take them up as a slate of donations that people are interested in providing to the Career Center. So they are listed on the agenda, but I will mention them by name. There is a lathe donation. There is a Prius donation. There is a welder donation. There is also an iPad video stand, and there is some fabric that is being donated or being put forth for acceptance as a donation. Thank you.
Thank you. When we approve the agenda, we also approve the consent agenda. So I'm presuming that since that was approved, that the minutes of December 1 are fine. Nick, do you have the monthly accounts, please?
I do. General fund, $114,110. Revolving fund was $6,628. Makery expenditures were $1,033. And we had we had 6 payrolls. The payroll for December 3rd was $89,075. The one for December 17th was $93,189. And then there were two weekly ones, $51,046 for December 22nd and $40,886 December 31st. That's what we did.
Great, thank you, Nick, and thank you for taking the time to come in.
Thank you too.
Moving on under action agenda, we have the donations to take up. There's the lathe, the 2004 Prius fabric welder and iPad video stand. Dana?
Thank you. Oops. Technical challenges here. Thank you, Suzanne. The items that I've mentioned, there is the value of the lathe is estimated to be approximately $300. The Prius is valued at under $500. Excuse me, did I say 3,000? $300 for the lathe, under $500 for the Prius, an approximate $500 donation for fabric, a $250 donation for the welder, and $150 for the video stand. So those are all items that people believe will be of value and use to the Career Center. Those items have been evaluated by program instructors and or facilities folks and have been deemed to be worthy for the board to accept to enhance the programs to which they would be offered or of general use to the Career Center. So it is our recommendation that that slate of donations be accepted by the board, and I'll entertain any questions.
Dana, can you repeat the dollar figures for the fabric and the video stand, please?
Video stand $150. The fabric is estimated at $500.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board, how would you like to proceed with these? Do you want to tally them up and do a motion for a total donation value and then include each pieces together, or do you want to accept each piece individually?
Suzanne, excuse me, the total value is approximately $1,700.
Yes.
I make a motion that we accept all of them in one lump.
Okay, Steve has made a motion that we accept all of the donations with a total value of approximately $1,700 as one lump donation. Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Lorraine.
Lorraine, was that you? It's been moved by Steve and seconded by Lorraine to accept the donations of approximate value of $1,700 as one lump. donation. Is there any further conversation on that or discussion?
I think we should thank the donors individually if that hasn't been done.
You'd like to do them individually?
No, I would like, I think.
Yes, Nick, we do send an individual thank you once the donations have been accepted. So we will make sure that we do that.
They go to each donor.
That's
Yeah.
correct. There is there's a method for doing that. So we will make
Okay.
sure that each donor gets thanked, and each donor will also receive, I believe it's a 1099. I'll ask Austin to clarify that if need be,
Yeah.
for their donations so that they can use that for tax purposes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other questions or concerns before we proceed to vote? And Nick, that was a good question. Thank you. Sorry, with my little screen, as I keep scrolling back and forth, I don't see any hands from any members that want to say anything. So I'll say that we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Any opposed? Whoops, Nick, was that a raised hand for an aye or an opposed?
Aye.
Okay, sorry. Any abstentions? Motion's passed. Policy 2.3, financial conditions and activity is a quarterly report. I believe that's you, Austin.
Yes, it is. Yep. Thanks, Suzanne. So we looked at this back in September, and I'll just read it as follows. I'll try my best to catch us up on time here. So the policy reads, with respect to the actual ongoing financial condition and activities, the superintendent shall not cause or allow the development of financial jeopardy or material deviation of actual expenditures from board priorities and established budgets. Further, without limiting the scope of the foregoing by this enumeration, the superintendent shall not. And there's a list of 10 directives that follow. So number 1 is expend more funds than have been received in the fiscal year to date unless the debt guideline is met. So as of the year end, December 31st, 2021, we have spent $1,734,936 in our fiscal year 22 budget of $3,829,301 in the general fund. So when you factor in encumbrances of $1,485,751, a balance of $608,614 remains for expenditures. So number 2 reads, incurred debt in an amount greater than can be repaid by certain otherwise unencumbered revenues within 60 days. So basically there's a paragraph here, but we have, with our ed fund payments that we received in December, we paid off our line of credit in full. So we borrowed $650,000 since July 1st, and we were able to pay down the full principal of that, in addition to the associated interest of just over $1,000. So moving forward, that leaves us with about $485,000 of available credit to use between now and the end of the fiscal year in June. So number 3 reads, use any long-term reserves other than those expressed in item 7 below. We'll get to item 7 in a minute, but essentially our building and equipment reserve fund is used for as a source of reserve funding if needed. And at the moment, our birth balance is $73,809. So number 4 reads, conduct interfund shifting in amounts greater than can be restored to a condition of discrete fund balances by certain otherwise unencumbered revenues within 45 days. The largest interfund shifting that we have conducted is our health reserve fund activity, and that is to pay for HRA and HSA costs. And since the start of the fiscal year, we've transferred $45,000 to that fund to cover those expenditures, and that's out of a budget of about $100,000. Number 5 reads, fail to settle payroll and debts in a timely manner. There are none to report on. Number 6 reads, allow tax payments or other government ordered payments or filings to be overdue or inaccurately filed. The largest tax payments that we make are tied to our payroll activity, and those are processed every 2 weeks without fail. Number 7 reads, make a single purchase or commitment of greater than $5,000 in the birth. And there's no activity to report in this reporting period. I think there's a typo, and that is my mistake. But the next one reads, acquire, encumber, or dispose of real property, and there's no activity to report on in this period. And number 10 is fail to aggressively pursue receivables after a reasonable grace period. In the next several weeks, we will be filing purchase requisitions for grants in our gear fund, Perkins, and our time grant. So those are the 3 grant activities that we will be processing in the next couple weeks. So that is the policy from A to Z. Do you have any questions?
Board, does anybody have any questions for Austin? Nick, are you all set? Normally you have a question.
No, I think it looks fine.
Okay, great.
Couple of
Thank you.
typos, but I'm not going to slow it down with that.
Rookie mistake.
May I have a motion to accept policy 2.3 financial condition and activity quarterly report, please?
So moved.
Moved by Nick. Is there a second?
Second, Lorraine.
Lorraine. So the policy, it's been moved and seconded to accept policy 2.3 financial conditions and activities, the quarterly report. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. Next is to approve the 2022-23 budget. And I believe that is Dana and Austin.
Yes, that's correct, Suzanne. If Patrice will allow me to screen share, I will do a brief presentation on the budget that captures where we are at as of today, what we know about. And then that will help influence the decisions and the action on the articles that we have later on the agenda. So I'll take just a few minutes. Austin and I together will take just a few minutes to go through the presentation. So Patrice, do I have screen sharing?
You should be all set, Dana.
Okay, here we go. Let me, hang on, stop for 1 sec. Oh, I see, okay. Let's see if we can try this again. Share. Whoops, it keeps popping. What's happening here?
Oh,
Got it.
okay.
You should be able to see that now.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Good evening, everyone. Austin, our Director of School Business Management, and I will be presenting this evening. Tonight's presentation will look at our comprehensive and aggregated proposed budget by function and object code. It will also provide a comparison with FY21 actual expenses and FY22 adopted budget amounts compared to the FY23 budget. Our total proposed expense budget for FY23 is $4,104,157. Our adopted budget for this current year is $3,829,301. And the net change is $274,856, and that is 7.2% change. Austin, do you have anything that you want to say about this before I move on to other slides?
Not at the moment. We'll get into the details as far as what explains the changes in the next few slides here.
Great, thank you. So the FY21 audit and fund balance, we have a total unrestricted fund balance of $275,000. The recommended allocation for FY23 and beyond are $75,000 for future tax abatement, $30,000 for next year, $45,000 for a future budget. A BRF allocation of $175,000. That would cover costs if we were doing any addition, if we have additional financing that will support our building improvements. And then a $25,000 health reserve account to be able to cover expenses that are health related that are constantly shifting. Austin, I'll reserve the context until a future slide, if that's okay with you.
That works, yeah.
So maybe you can comment here. This is our budget, our FY23 budget by function code. So Austin, I'll let you take it away from here.
Yeah, so we presented these figures in a little bit more detail, slightly different format in last month's meeting and with our budget and policy committee as well last month. This is the same format that we looked at last year. Essentially, it just is a way to slice the budget into different buckets and categories by function. And we've listed the actuals for fiscal year 21 and then the changes over time with respect to our current year budget and then the proposed change for next year. As with last year, we'll get into cost drivers later, but this gives kind of a clear breakdown as far as where the funds are being allocated and just movement over time. So I'll pause there for a second if anyone has any questions about this specific slide. Otherwise, we'll shift into the object budget. Hearing none.
Are there any questions at this point? No. Okay, Austin, I think you're good to go.
Thanks. Dana, next slide. Yep. So this is the same look. It's just as far as the overall budget, it's just a way to look at it in a slightly different angle. So salaries and benefits together comprise about 80% of our budget. And then depending on the line items, you can see the breakdown as far as percentages go. We did get a little bit of a break in our debt service. So just the existing bond we have, our principal payment is dropping next year. So that is helpful. And we did have a slight or level funded amount in our insurance due to workers' comp coming in lower. Yeah, other than that, those are the kind of the different areas to look at this next year's budget. And are there any questions about this angle?
Yeah, Austin, and I might have just missed what if you had said it, but what exactly goes into the professional services line?
So it's any contracted work that we hire out for if an instructor needs a professional to come in and give a presentation, or if there are certain repairs that we have to hire a service for. Repairs and maintenance are more material costs, and then professional services would be more labor related.
So Austin, I can also chime in. John has a number of professional service contracts with providers to maintain many of our systems, whether those are HVAC or mechanical or electrical systems, alarm systems, and things like that. We have ongoing regular needs for maintenance and also for safety checks. So those need to be done annually, and they make up a large portion of those professional services.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there any other questions before Austin or Dana continue on?
Nick,
Nick?
just to say that the Budget and Policy Committee did look at these numbers in detail a couple of weeks ago. I would just like to point out that, 79% is the top two lines. So that's where the bulk of our investment is going.
Yeah, as I mentioned, 80% of our costs are personnel related. Of the $275-ish thousand increase that was referenced on the previous slide that Dana spoke about, 262,000 of that is directly attributed to salaries and benefits. It makes sense as a public school. That's where you want your funding to go, and it just kind of explains the rationale behind the percentages. Some other kind of talking points to note, and then we'll move on to the next slide, is health insurance costs last year were a significant cost driver as well. Our premiums increased last year about 10%. This year they came in slightly lower at 5.5%. So there was a little bit of a relief there, but it's still a significant increase. We did have some adjustments as far as positions that were budgeted, so that explains movement there on the personnel line. In the business office, we did increase benefits coverage, and as far as benefits as well, we did add for the engineering position some medical coverage that wasn't in previous budgets. Trying to think. Those are the biggest talking points that I have at the moment.
Are there any other questions, or seeing no hands, and we'll let them continue on. Austin or Dana, next slide.
So this represents our revenues. And Austin, if you want, feel free to chime in. We have tax abatement from the FY20 budget as well as from the FY21 budget that we believe should be applied to help with our help mitigate some of the loss on our FTEs to maintain a certain level of tuition costs for our partner schools. We have various reimbursements and interest income, not a large amount. We have a transportation reimbursement as well. We were fortunate to receive an innovation grant this year, and we expect to be able to carry that over for next year. That innovation grant would be a little less. We're expecting to have less, but we're making a conservative estimate on $50,000 for that continued grant. And then we have the total budgeted revenues of 376,000, which is 95,500 more than what we had for revenues in FY22. Our state-based tuition payment is $1,289,000, and our tuition assistance grant is $518,000. So total budgeted revenues plus state payment and tuition assistance, $2,184,623. Austin, anything that you would like to add?
The only thing I would comment on, Dana, is the format is pretty consistent with last year. The innovation grant is the biggest insertion aside from the tax abatement. So we didn't have an innovation grant as revenue last year. So that is a notable difference this year.
So,
Right, and our Perkins allocation did increase slightly, but so there you go.
So just for those that don't know what the initials FAUPL under the Perkins grant, could someone let people know what
Yes.
that means?
Formally agreed upon performance levels.
Okay.
So those are what we negotiate with the state with respect to how our students are going to be performing. And if there are areas that we are unable to meet those agreed upon performance standards, we must designate a certain percentage of our Perkins grant to those particular initiatives. And that just makes sense because our goal is to make sure that all students can be successful and improve in their performance on a variety of different measures.
Great, thank you for explaining that to people, because not everyone would understand what those initials are.
Right, and I forgot. I apologize for the acronym. I should have spelled that out, and I didn't think to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions before I move on to our next slide?
I don't see any hands raised, Dana, so I think you both are good to go on.
Great, thanks. Just to let you know, Suzanne, when I'm in presentation mode, I can't see anybody on the screen. So thank you for guiding us.
Yep.
So our estimated tuition and assessments. After the revenues are subtracted from expenses, we have a calculation based on our 6th semester FTE average. And as we presented in the board packet, these are the latest numbers. They are subject to a little bit of change. We want to confirm those first, but this is what we'll be using in our warnings at the moment. We are looking to raise by taxes 1,919,534. Divide that by the 6th semester average FTE at 131.81, and we get a $14,563 tuition rate, which is $67 lower than it was last year. The state payment is $9,785. When that is added to the tuition rate, we get $24,348. That's up $521. But I will note that the majority of that is in the state payment. So that is not what our partners get assessed. That is directly off the ed fund. So there are taxes that are contributing to that, but that total cost is not a taxpayer direct assessment. Austin, anything that you need to add to that explanation?
The only color commentary I'd provide, Dana, is the second bullet point where we're talking about the tuition assessments from our sending districts. The reason behind the reduction, even though our total expenditures increased, is our FTE count significantly increased. And again, this has to be, the AOE hasn't finalized their numbers just yet. They're a little bit late this year compared to last year. But provided the numbers that we're working with at the moment are confirmed on their end, we would benefit from a reduction in what we would bill our sending districts based on our improvement on our FTE rate, which is helpful.
And there is an error. I just caught a typo. There is an error in the second to last bullet. That should be the same as the bullet above, 131.81. I believe that is a number from a previous year. So I believe that is last year's number. So you can see for comparison purposes, we're up almost 3 FTEs. The other figures on that line are accurate. So my apologies for the typo.
Board,
Okay.
any questions or move on? No? Okay, we're good to move on.
Austin has already gone over a few of these cost drivers, but we have a single slide here that gives the basic breakdown of how the costs are apportioned out. So instructional salaries, 113,000, other salaries, 44,000, health insurance, 67. Austin specified that it was 5.5% on the premium. Other benefits, including Social Security, that's also linked to salaries and stipends. That's 27,000, and miscellaneous, program enhancements or various budgeted items in terms of supplies and other things, 23,856. I will note that up in the salary line, 26,000 approximately was a restored position from last year that has to be reabsorbed back into the budget. There's an innovation position of approximately 48,000 that will be offset by some revenues. And then we have a negotiated amount of 39,000 in approximately in the adjustments based on new staffing and what the board has agreed to with respect to future for next year's salaries for instructors.
Board,
So-
is there any questions or comments, concerns? I don't see anybody with any hands raised, so Dana, if you have another slide, please feel free to.
Okay. The net increase is the same as we presented on the difference between last year's this year's FY22 budget and the projected one for next year. For our program overview in detail, our pre-technical programs saw an increase this year based on opening additional sections with innovation grant funding. Our total FTE count also saw a return to pre-COVID levels at almost 147 FTEs for the fall of 2021. That's almost identical to where we were in 2019. Last year, as you remember, I reported a significant drop as a result of changes in schedules at some of our partner schools, and that's been restored, and I'm very happy to report that we are working very closely with our partners to provide the best quality opportunities for our students. And unlike the general ed programs, decisions for CTE programs are based on industry demand and AOE approval. Just keep that in mind. Just as a comparison, based on historical data from AOE, we are right in the middle of the 3 independent career centers in terms of overall budget spending. I don't have the exact figures for this year, but they're consistent with last year. That's Southwest Career Development Center and then Springfield River Valley Technical Center. We are serving over 400 students this year. That surpasses our ranking of second in the state in 2020 with 390, FY20 with 399 students when we served those. We were second at that point in time, only to North Country Career Center. So I just want to emphasize how well we are reaching out to our students and our community and providing quality learning experiences for them. Questions?
So Dana, this is Steve. The only question that I have is one from the very beginning when you're talking about what you were doing with the surplus from last year. You noted that you're allocating some of it to offset taxes. And then it says 45,000 for a future budget. How is that handled? Is that in a
That's in our
reserve
article.
fund?
Well, that's actually, it will be carried over as a fund balance, and it will be earmarked as non-spendable.
Okay.
So it doesn't go into a reserve fund for that purpose. It goes into an earmark for non-spendable carryover fund balance. That's the way the auditors indicate that, and that's part of our articles to review in just a few minutes.
So they allow you to do a multi-year tax abatement allocation?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And Steve, to add to that, last year we faced the same proposition. So as part of our fiscal year 20 fund balance allocations, we had approximately $100,000 that we were left with at the end of fiscal year 20. So 27.5 of that was earmarked for fiscal year 23 future budgets. So that's what we worked with this time last year as well.
That also allows us to keep a fund balance and withdraw less money from our line of credit, saving us interest payments.
So the, this is Suzanne, the BERF, the 175, is that including the possible bond initial balance or payment?
Yes, that includes both an allocation to the building equipment and reserve fund, as well as a projected cost on any interest payments that would be due in 2023.
Okay.
Nick, how confident are you in that $275,000 number?
Austin, you want to handle that from your conversations with the auditors?
Yeah, at the moment we don't have anything finalized from them, so there's always it's not a guess, but it's an estimated guess, I would say. But as far as conversations with the auditors to date, had a recent conversation with them at the end of last week. They haven't seen anything at the moment that would give them pause or make any adjustments to what we're looking at here. As far as projections go and looking at general fund expenditures for fiscal year 21, we're pretty confident in that number. It's not 100% confirmed until we have their due diligence, and they're still going through their controls and review process. So until we have that back from them, we're a little bit behind schedule from where we were last year, but not terribly. So as Dana mentioned, the figures there may change slightly, but as far as when we're looking at the general fund underspend for fiscal year 21, that's a pretty fair take on our part. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Kim?
Thank you.
So Dana, I have two questions. One is this a presentation that you gave to the sending schools when you went to visit them?
No, this was not. This has only been refined since we had our December 17th meeting.
Okay.
This is the presentation that I will offer when I meet with them either later in January or in February.
Okay.
That's the second version, because this is an evolving process.
Right,
And
I
so we
understand
had
that.
no idea back in October. I think we had budgeted maybe an $87,000 unrestricted fund balance based on information we had at the time. In order to get to this number, you have to understand that we went through quite a bit of record keeping and bookkeeping regarding the funds that we did receive in terms of gear and CRF that had an impact on the FY20 budget and into revenues for FY21, which we couldn't tease out until all was said and done and the payments had been made to us for that. And then we realized that some of our costs had been reapportioned, and we got funding to cover those costs, which is one time. We wouldn't get that in the future, but that was that actually produced a significant amount of that $275,000 fund balance. Without those CRF funds allocated to us and paid to us that came very late in the spring last year, that fund balance would be significantly reduced, below 100,000.
My second question, Dana, is would it be possible for us to have a copy of this, even as it's updated? Just
Absolutely.
in the event we get conversations from some of our constituents and how things are moving. Makes it a little bit easier.
We will send this out either later this evening or tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
So that all board members can have it. Yep, I'll send it in a PDF form.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Board, are there any other concerns or questions?
Lorraine?
Oh, sorry, I was scrolling and I didn't get to you yet. Lorraine?
Yes, if I could go back a second, I just want to make sure I understand before I ask my question to Steve's question about the 30,000 and the 45,000. So those monies are being set aside to help reduce taxes in 23 and in the future. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So my question slash comment perhaps is, it's like very.
Sorry, Lorraine, I can't hear your question.
How much of an impact that really has on anybody's, any individual's tax burden. And I realize that we are going out for a bond, which will hopefully succeed, but I'm wondering if any thought was given to keeping the whole.
So Lorraine, you're cutting in and out, but I think what you are saying is you're wondering if you cut out quite a bit, but I think knowing you, what you were asking was, had there been any thought about keeping the whole amount and not returning it to the taxpayers?
Yes.
I will tell you, I asked that question and I will let the business office and Dana answer that question.
It has been recommended to us, and this goes back a couple of years by our auditors, that we are very tight on our cash flow, and it is imperative that we have some ability to be able to make payments and not have to rely so heavily on a line of credit. To Austin's credit, this year we reduced by almost $200,000 the amount that we had to borrow on the line of credit, which reduced our our interest costs by about 80%. And this allows for a little bit of cash to be able to be applied in a situation where there may be increased cost resulting from a bond or other indebtedness that we would have to pay down, and that could be used and applied to that particular need as a result of in order to be able to avoid any tax implications. So having that around and allowing it to perhaps generate a little bit of interest also serves a dual purpose of allowing for cash flow, addressing any unanticipated needs, and being able to stabilize tax bills from year to year.
Does that help, Lorraine? Or
no, that totally confused me. I don't really see where $30,000 is going to make a difference in our budget from year to. I mean, I don't know. That just seems like in a $4 million budget, $30,000 doesn't seem like a lot. So I'm not sure what. I guess I don't understand that. So I guess I'll just take the word of our professionals that this is a good thing to do, as opposed to, just putting it all into the BRF.
Yeah, the auditors in the past have told us that our budgets run very, very tight from year to year and have recommended a buffer of approximately 3%. And this is an exceptional year, but in the time that I have been here, we have not run a budget that has been that flush. And the 3% would be somewhere in the $110,000 to $120,000 range. And that is, they're based on their recommendations, is cutting your budget very, very close. So if you can use our article to be able to adjust the cost of tuition rates for our sending schools, and we do have the pending change in funding, but right now, oftentimes the cost of the tuition that goes to our sending schools becomes an area for misunderstanding and an area of contention and competition. And if we can maintain a stable expense or tuition assessment, then that helps with recruitment of students, as well as stabilizing the cost the our CT Center is asking for with respect to the students that we serve. So there are multiple benefits for doing it that way, Lorraine. And I think it is important to listen to the advice of our financial consultants.
Okay, just one more question, if I might, Suzanne.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
So the money that we use to offset the budget gets counted the next year as income, correct? And so that could affect our budget negatively, couldn't it? I mean, I guess, again, I'm going to take what you guys say is correct, but I know at the ACSD, I often have an issue with using money that is surplus to reduce taxes, because it can cause a slippery slope from year to year, and that has to be year's income.
That's understandable, but the auditors would say that you want to keep a certain level of cash flow within your system. And as you pointed out, we're talking about a very small amount. So we get a big bang for our buck without having to worry about that slippery slope that you're talking about. If you have hundreds of thousands of dollars or sometimes millions of dollars, then you have a different order of magnitude and a different concern that the auditors would be flagging. But for us, the concern is not that we are overly flush with our reserves, but that we need to make sure that we are maintaining a certain level of reserve to be able to maintain stability and reliability in operations.
Okay, thanks, Dana, for taking the time to explain that.
You're welcome.
So Dana, I just wanted to clarify one point. I mean, I agree with having the bandwidth that you're talking about. I mean, everybody needs a contingency plan for, and it looks like the money's allocated to other resources otherwise.
Right.
You noted though that it's in a non-spendable account for future budgets. If you do end up with some type of an emergency, how do you access the money?
So Steve, what it means is that if we need to, it goes into our fund balance, which is carried over from year to year, and that can be used to offset costs that would otherwise be passed on to the taxpayer. So we have to be very careful about how we keep the books on that. But what it does allow is school districts are allowed to incur debt if they would need to and have that paid from one year to the next. If that were the case and we had to incur debt, we could avoid that by using the restricted fund balance to offset that taxpayer cost.
So that would be that'd be a one-time adjustment, sort of at the end of the year or something.
That's correct. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But also to answer your question, Steve, as far as I see it, the way this is allocated in the fund balance is it's assigned for a specific purpose. So it's earmarking the funds to be used for specific purposes. So that's kind of the restriction there. But as far as access to those funds in those specific purposes, you're not necessarily restricted. Does that make sense?
And you bring it back as income, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, technically that's the way we code it so that we, in our worksheet, but it's actually money that we would be foregoing in the next tax year instead of raising the taxes. So we do count it as income, but as you pointed out in the past, that's a sometimes odd way of categorizing it. But yes, it comes back in as tax abatement, and that is on our income side.
Right.
Okay. So Dana and Austin, one last question for me, and then if there aren't any other questions from the board, we'll take a vote on it. So the way the BRF is set up, it does not prohibit us from making like a bond payment or something from that account?
I did a little research into that, and the way the BRF is, it states that it would be for capital improvements and the bond would be for capital improvements. I'm still waiting on a final legal opinion on that, but at the moment, that's what we believe to be accurate.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Board, does anybody else have, Kim, sorry.
Kind of a little away from the budget. Any other monies on the horizon from the feds? Any change in that whole system that we seem to be not a piece of?
No, nothing at the moment.
Thank you.
There is some talk about some Vermont legislative intervention that might help us out in our current fiscal year, but that's still under development.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
And just a last comment, I think our birth numbers have been very low for the last few years, considering the amount of investment we have. So I'm in favor of increasing the birth.
There is also another $25,000, when we talked about the balance that Austin mentioned in his financial report. There is another $25,000 that is a transfer that still needs to be made, I believe, Austin.
Yes,
If I'm not mistaken.
24,000 for current fiscal year.
24,000. So it's closely approaching the $100,000 mark, and that is our target, to keep our BRF at approximately $100,000. This allocation presented here would significantly exceed that. Part of that would be allocated potentially to any interest payments on indebtedness in FY23. But there would still be a fund balance left over that would bring our BRF above $100,000.
Significantly.
And remember that we do have built into our operating budget a $25,000 transfer that occurs each year as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So that BRF is being replenished on a regular basis.
Board, any other comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the 2022-23 budget as presented.
So moved, Kim.
It's been moved by Kim. Do I have a second?
Nick?
It's been moved by Kim and seconded by Nick to accept the 2022-23 budget as presented. Is there any further discussion?
For Linda's benefit, it's $4,104,157.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no hands raised, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. The next item in our agenda is to approve the 2022-23 adult tech ed budget, which was in your board packet.
And Suzanne, it's just to accept that. You don't have to approve it because it runs separate out of the general fund. So just an acceptance of the, for technical purposes, acceptance of that.
Does anybody on the board have any questions about the adult ed tech budget?
Balances beautifully. Not a penny to spare.
It's called very tight bookkeeping.
Yeah.
The type that would give me a heartache.
I don't know how they've done it.
Or a major headache, I'm not sure which, but other than Nick's comment about it being a very tight budget, is there anybody else that has a comment or a concern or?
Correction, I said beautifully balanced.
Beautifully balanced, excuse me. I stand corrected, Nick. Anyone else? Then I'll take a motion to accept the 2022-23 adult tech ed budget as presented.
So move.
Moved by Nick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Kim to accept the proposed adult ed tech budget for 2022-23. Are there any further comments, questions, concerns?
We want to specify the amount.
I am sorry. We will add, Nick, is that okay if we add that into your motion?
Sure, yeah.
We accept the
152,015.
Okay. Thank you, Lorraine. Anything else? Any other concerns or questions, thoughts? We'll proceed to vote. All in favor of accepting the proposed adult ed tech budget for 2022-23 for the amount of $152,015. Please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed.
Excuse me.
Yes, Dana.
Suzanne, what was the number that you gave? Because on my sheet, that's not what I'm looking at. Austin, what was the number that you have on the?
152,015, I believe.
152.
That's
Yep.
what you sent
015.
out.
Yes, yep,
Okay.
152,015.
I
Yep.
received the wrong sheet in my packet. That's the reason. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item is to approve warnings for annual meeting.
Yes, and I think you
Sorry,
all
Suzanne,
have
I
those.
think the tuition rate is before the warnings.
Oh. Thank you. I
Mm.
missed it. Approve announced tuition rate. Is that you, Dana, or Austin?
Either one of us can handle that. You should have a sheet that has the tuition worksheet calculation, and I'll just jump down to the final line. The tuition rate is $14,562.77. So it'll be $14,563. So that's what you are approving for FY23.
So 14,563 is the proposed tuition rate
Yes.
Yes.
for 2022-23.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there any questions around that, board, or discussion, or? I don't see any hands raised. So I'll look for a motion to approve the announced tuition rate of 14,563 for the 2022-23 school year.
So moved, Steve.
Steve has moved it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Nick has seconded. It's been moved and seconded to accept the announced tuition rate of 14,563 for 2022-23. Is there any further discussion? I don't see any hands raised, so I'll take that as no further discussion. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. Now we'll move on to the warnings for the annual meeting. Dana or Austin, who's taking this?
I can do it.
Dana.
What's that?
Austin can chime in if he needs to. Most of these are fairly straightforward and come from our regular articles for each year. We are looking at the election of officers, which is an annual event at the annual meeting. We're looking to hear and act upon reports from the treasurer and auditors. That's also an annual event. We hope that those will be ready for the October meeting. If not, we may have to make a decision to delay those to a subsequent meeting. We've had to do that once in my tenure here.
February meeting, Dana? Not October?
Excuse me, the February meeting.
Thank you.
Did I say October? I'm sorry. I don't know where I got that. February. The third one is to allow us to borrow money. That's a standard article that hasn't changed. The fourth is to allocate 175,000 that we just reviewed to the BRF. The fifth is to authorize the board of directors to use that fund for capital improvements and program equipment. That answers in part your question, Suzanne, about how the money can be used. The sixth article is to allocate 25,000 to the health reserve account, which we also presented in the presentation, in the PowerPoint slide presentation. 7 is to use those health reserve funds to address expenses related to healthcare coverage. Article 8 is to allocate 30,000 for the FY23 3 budget and 45,000 for future budgets. Is that in there as a typo there? Authorize the board of directors to allocate its remaining FY21 fund balance as follows. Assign 30,000 to the district's, oh, that should be FY23, not FY21. No, wait a second. Fund balance as follows. 21 fund balance for revenues to the 2022-2023 school year. Yep. So that's correct. Sorry, my apologies. Misreading the article. And then Article 10 is the budget, which you've just approved. 4,104,000. There, I will have to redo that calculation because it was at 1.6.7. I think it's 7.2 based on the latest information that we presented in the PowerPoint slide. So I believe that's 7.2%. We'll correct that for the warning. And then the total amount, 24,348, should be what we just presented. And that's a 2.19% increase in spending per FTE for next year. That's the $512. Article 11 is a new article. That is the one that asks, shall the voters of the district approve the school board to incur indebtedness in an amount not to exceed $8,100,000 for the purposes of making capital improvements.
Okay. Are there any other articles that we might need, Dana, or does this cover everything?
Oh, no, I made an adjustment. There should be an article on, my apologies, Suzanne. There should be an article on, let me see if I can pull that up. I may not have put it in the packet because that was a late change. Article for board stipends. And I need to find that. Give me 1 second.
Yep. So board, based on the articles that are currently here, does everybody understand them? And does anybody have any questions on those? Nick?
I think we probably had it in last year, but I'm not sure what Article 7 really adds. But maybe it's a technical requirement.
It's a technical one, Nick, yes.
So I guess to build on that though, Nick and Dana, is what if Article 6 passes but Article 7 does not pass, or vice versa? It seems like you would get hung up because you're basically saying the same thing in 2 different ways. But
yes,
the first one is to allocate a specific amount, and then the second one is giving permission to use those funds. But
we have to, each year, the voters have to authorize the board to actually expend the monies that are in reserve accounts. And so that's why that second one is there with no dollar amount. The other is to actually how you use your unrestricted fund balance. And so the voters have to be asked how they want that money to be allocated. So
what would happen
right.
Yeah, what would happen if one fails? Maybe it's not like
then you have to have a special special meeting to review it. You'd have to go back out to the voters and ask again. Otherwise, you'd have a fund account that you couldn't use. So I don't know. That's I mean, that's a hypothetical question, perhaps, that as far as I know, has never occurred.
Well, actually, yeah, because Article 5 says more or less the same thing for the birth.
It does, right? And these are the articles that we put out there each year.
Yeah.
So
I am kind of curious why it's done that way. I know, at Mount Abe, we do have these reserve funds as well, but the authorization to spend them is included in the allocation. In other words, it's almost like you would take those 2 articles and combine them.
Yeah.
So that you have the allocation plus the authorization to spend it in the same article.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
Could we
And
rewrite them that way?
It it actually defines, like, we have two funds at Mount Abe. One is capital and one is education, and there's differences on how they're authorized to be spent. One is a voter approval and one is just a board action, and those are included in the authorizations for those two reserves.
Right. So Dana, I'm wondering if we can rewrite these 4 articles so that it includes, like, it includes all the language in one, so that it would possibly prohibit one from passing and the other from going down.
Yeah, not likely to happen, but I guess it
Well,
could
no.
happen.
I serve at your pleasure. Let me know what you'd like to do. If you're going to do that, then you should, the board should make a motion to authorize the chair to review the articles and be able to approve them on behalf of the board. Because otherwise you are not going to have articles unless you have a special meeting ready. And I do apologize, the new Article 9, which I did not somehow put into the board packet when that was updated, was to see if the voters of the district will vote to approve a stipend of $2,500 for the board chair, approve a stipend of $1,200 for each board member, and approve a stipend of $2,000 for the board clerk. That is Article 9. If you need to, I can share that. I can do a screen share.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I was just trying to write what Dana just said.
I know that we had a discussion about board stipend increases, but as far as I know, there was never any decision made on that. So I'm a little concerned over the fact that we have a item for the voters to approve when the board itself never made that determination, as far as I know.
I believe the board discussed it, but I don't know if there was ever a formal vote, I should say, on that.
No, I don't recall that either.
So who made that decision to put this on the ballot?
So the question that came up was one of, as I was putting those ballot items together, since the board would have to vote to put this on, I believe it was Suzanne's intention for the discussion to happen now, if you wanted to have that on the ballot, because it has to go to the voters. The board can't vote to have their own salaries increased, so it has to go to the voters. So when Suzanne was discussing this with me and we both sought legal advice, it would have to be a ballot item in order for this to occur. So the board couldn't really take any action other than approving the article.
Right.
No,
and actually, Lorraine, the other thing I want to let you know is, in asking legal advice, they also told us that it's good practice or best practices that if there's any money in a school budget to pay for board members, it should be voted on every year as an article. So
No.
I was like, oh, well, we don't even vote on it. So that's.
Okay, no, I understand that and I get that, but I think it's very presumptuous to just put that as a potential ballot item without having a board vote beforehand, whether we want to increase the stipends, and then if so, the amount. Because I mean, the board could decide we didn't want to do that. So I'm just a little upset that this was already made a possible budget item for the voters without the board actually having made that determination that we think we should do that.
So as the articles are presented, that's why I ask if there's any discussion on them or any comments or concerns. And so it would just be, so it's here. So obviously it's drawing conversation. So let's discuss it and we can change it. We can amend it just so that it just says that we continue to pay ourselves, which I don't think nobody in the world knows what we get, how little we get paid. So what does the board feel about putting an article out about us being paid and the stipends being attached to it?
I'm kind of surprised that it wasn't in past articles, actually. Where is it actually on record?
I can't tell you.
That's is it just a
Stipend,
budget?
stipends were approved several years ago, and they have not changed.
Not changed.
Yeah, but so they're just a line item in the budget somewhere.
That is correct. But there was an article many years ago that the voters approved.
Okay.
Like I know for ACSD, when we unified, there was an article at that point in time that talked about board stipends. Lorraine, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe that since then, it's been 6 or 7 years, there's not been a single article since stating to the public that the board is being paid.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've not seen anything either.
So my understanding is that when the board approved, when there is a change in those stipends, that it has to go to the voters. And I think that that's what districts have been practicing. But to Suzanne's point, it doesn't hurt for the voters to see in front of them, even if the stipends are not changing, what their elected officials receive for their compensation.
Can I ask what the board clerk is currently making? I know we get what, $550, but it depends on whether you attend all the meetings or not.
The board clerk, I believe, gets $1,000. And there was some discussion that came to my attention that that should be increased. And I think that that would have board clerks making something similar to what others get for compensation.
Yeah, the numbers that you're proposing sound familiar to our district anyway.
I think they're consistent. When Suzanne and others brought to my attention this issue, and I think it also went before Budget and Policy, correct me if I'm wrong, to discuss, and that the numbers that are here are consistent with numbers in other school districts around the county.
ACSD only gets 600, right, Suzanne? I'm thinking,
500.
or 500, might be 500.
500.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry.
500. Doesn't matter how many meetings we attend.
Right. I mean, I'm just gonna. I mean, I think I expressed this when we discussed it before. I've always had a issue, and I agree. We all work hard. The board chair works hard. The members work hard, but to me, I'm on a school board, and not that you're getting financial gain from this, but I prefer to keep stipends low, only because I think I'd rather see that money, as insignificant amount as it is, going toward the school. And granted, you don't have to take your stipend, but I am much more comfortable with the $600 stipend or $500 stipend, I guess, that ACSD gets, as opposed to, and that includes the board chair. She gets the same amount as we do. To me, that's just a lot of money, but that's just me.
Anybody? Oh, I didn't see whose hand went first, so I'll take Missy because I haven't heard from her, and then you, Kim.
Thank you.
Sure. I hadn't heard about this being a topic, but I support the increase. I think the amount of hours, especially over the last year or so, that everyone on this screen has invested in all of the extra committee meetings, it's significant. And so I think the increase is warranted.
Thank you, Missy. Kim?
In my past experience as a chair of the Bristol Elementary Board years ago, where we had to go, there was not an Australian ballot. I took the time to address how many hours I had spent as the chairperson at that time, and it absolutely flabbergasted the people on the floor. We asked for an increase because you're right, it had to go in front of the voters. There were some members who objected to it. And I put it out there. If you don't want to accept the money, that's your choice, and it can go back into the fund. And that's happened, I think, you know, in my sending district on a numerous amount of occasions, because there were people, Lorraine, that felt the same way you did. But I know the amount of hours that Suzanne's put in, and we both have in regards to talking to legal, you know, advice and other things that aren't even part of any particular meeting, has been a tremendous load. And I will speak on Suzanne's behalf that she's not complaining about any of it, but man, she has earned every cent of as little as she gets.
Thank you, Kim. Anybody else have any comments or thoughts?
Yeah, I
Nick?
would say
Whoop.
that, go ahead, Nick. Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, I'm talking for myself. I'm with Lorraine. I mean, I don't, frankly, you know, it's the difference between 550 and 600 or 500, you know, isn't going to make a huge amount of difference. But I do agree that Suzanne has put in a huge amount of effort this year and deserves every penny she gets.
Thanks, Nick. Steve, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that for me, the money is immaterial. And I agree with Lorraine on that front. But I think having a reasonable stipend makes the positions available to others who may not be under the same circumstances. And it broadens the number of folks who might be available. I mean, I know we're down some positions for board members now, and it could be that folks who struggle, it might make some difference. That's my only thought.
Okay, thank you. So how would the board like to proceed on this? Would you like Dana to read his article again with the numbers in it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I realize what the difference was in those, oops, where am I? I realized what the difference was because I had drafted a different set of articles based on different numbers from AOE that have not been confirmed. And I thought that I would be sending that out to you, but we ended up going back with the old articles. So that's why this segment was not there. So my apologies for that. Prepared and didn't execute. So Article 9 is to see if the voters of the district will vote to approve the stipend of $2,500 for the board chair. To see if the voters of the district would vote to approve the stipend of $1,200 for each board member. And to see if the voters of said district will vote to approve the stipend of $2,000 for the board clerk.
So moved.
So it's been moved and seconded by Kim to accept Article 9 that Dana just read.
You know what?
It might change the articles. It's going to change the article sequence, I think.
Right.
Yeah. And I can do that. I do apologize. I think it's not board clerk. It's the board treasurer.
Board treasurer.
So it's board treasurer, not board clerk. And I did read that twice, but.
And do you want to make it? Do you want to make it Article 14 or something instead, and put it at the end so you're not renumbering everything?
Well, Steve, we might have to, if the board authorizes me to work with legal on combining some of these articles, we're going to have to renumber them anyway.
Yes, right. Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing is that the first 10 articles, 9 on your sheet, are for the annual meeting. The other 2 are for our Australian ballot.
Yeah.
And we do have to come up with a determination of the annual meeting, and Suzanne, you and I need to talk about that because of some complications, and we should probably loop Linda into our conversation about that.
Yeah.
Because we have some decisions we need to make that are a little less clear than what we had last year for voter preparation.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor to accept a new Article 9, which may not end up being Article 9, depending on how we do everything else. It's been moved and seconded, correct? Yes. So is there any further discussion on the motion?
I do not have anyone seconded. I had the motion made by Kim.
Oh.
Steve actually made the motion.
Steve made it and Kim seconded it.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Oh, Nick, sorry.
Yes, I would like to amend that to the board chair and the clerk. I'm not sure. I mean, the money we get for as members, you know, it's free as far as I'm concerned. So I think the board chair and the clerk merit an increase, but I'm not sure the board members do.
If you mean the treasurer?
Treasurer, so
Board treasurer.
is the treasurer.
Yep.
So Kim, you made them, no, you seconded it.
Steve made
the motion. Do you accept to make the amendment, or would you like us to vote on the amendment first and then see if it goes into the motion?
I'd rather vote on the amendment because I'd rather keep it the way it is.
Okay. So do I have a second on the amendment to leave the board members' stipends as they are and increase the board chair and the board treasurer's stipends?
Suzanne, I'm not following.
So
Can Steve repeat what he just said?
Nick motion to amend the current motion to leave board members' stipend as it is, increase the board chair stipend, and increase the treasurer's stipend. But I don't have a second on the motion. So unless I have a second on the motion, then that motion doesn't go anywhere. And then we would turn to discuss and vote on the original motion.
Thank you. I got a little confused there for a moment. Thank you
Okay.
very much for clarifying.
Do I have a second on Nick's motion? Guess I don't see one. So we'll proceed. Thank you though, Nick. So we're back to the original motion that Steve made, Kim seconded. And that was to increase board member stipends, the board chair stipend, and the board treasurer stipend. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing no hands raised. Oh, Austin, is that your hand raised?
No.
Okay. Great. Seeing no hands raised to ask or vote or voice discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of this new article around board stipends, please say aye. Or raise your hands. Any opposed?
Nay.
Any
Nay.
abstentions? 2 nays. So there's the board chair typically doesn't vote. So there are 3 ayes and 2 nays. So the motion's passed. So back to the whole list of articles. How would the board like me to work with legal and see if we can combine some of these articles and then renumber them? Or
Yes.
would you like them as they are, just renumbered to include everything?
I agree with having you work with council to renumber them.
So do I.
Nick, that was, okay, so may I have that as a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Steve to have chair
Thank-
work with council to renumber and reword some of these articles.
Combined, yes.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to have board chair work with council on rewording, renumbering the articles. Is there any further discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed.
Suzanne, just a point of clarification. I think you will also need authorization from the board to then warn those articles after they've been reworked by legal counsel.
Okay.
Because all they're authorizing you to do is rework them, and it would be presumed that you would have to take it back to the board unless you
Right.
get authorization to warn them, because the substance of the articles is not going to change. You're just looking to have legal counsel review them in a manner that will allow them to achieve your intent.
Okay, thank you. Board, can I have a motion to, if you so wish, to have the chair warn the articles once they have been renumbered and reworded? Believe me, I will share.
Authorizing the chair.
Authorizing me. I will share them all with you before they go anywhere.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to authorize the chair to approve the warnings once they've been reworded and renumbered for the annual meeting. Is there any further discussion?
I just have a quick question on the
Yep.
procedure, because the very top of the art warning says that you're going to meet in person. And I believe the legislature made a decision today that affects towns voting that way. So I just want to make sure that that's correct when we print it and send it out.
I think that's what Dana was just referring to, that there had been a new change and that we needed to have a conversation about that.
We can probably authorize the board chair to work with the superintendent to straighten that out. Good thing you're getting an extra pay raise here, Suzanne. 'Cause-
Maybe.
Or
Hasn't got it yet.
Yeah, right.
Hasn't got it yet.
Yeah.
Anything else you got to do?
Well, I do sometimes have a job.
I don't know how.
I haven't had supper yet. So I've lost track of the motion. Someone help me please with what the motion is currently.
You have a motion to authorize the chair to make the changes that need to be made and approve the warning for posting.
So I'm presuming, and I know presumptions sometimes get you in a bucket of hot water, but if this motion is to authorize me to prepare all of this so that it's correct, that would also then include correcting or updating how that annual meeting will be held.
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you. Sorry, Judd just texted me. He's home. All in favor of the current motion, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. I think I might have to take a vacation day to get this done, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Suzanne, I can help you with getting in contact with our legal team to get that draft language to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Our
welcome.
last item under action agenda is internal controls checklist. Is that you, Austin, or is that Dana?
Yep,
That's
that's
awesome.
the same checklist I reviewed this time last year. It's an annual internal financial controls checklist we have to look at once a year by statute. So it was in the board packet, and it's a 2-page questionnaire that I filled out to the best of my knowledge. And I guess without going through every single line item, because there are many, are there any questions about any of the answers or information I submitted this go around?
And technically, Austin, I think the board could take this and review it and accept it or adopt it at a future meeting. I don't think it has to be adopted this evening, but that's just
correct. Yes. So
just so that we, for
I
clarification
think the
purposes.
superintendent, so you, Suzanne, you have 2 months to review it within receiving it. So.
Okay. Good evening, Judd. Thank you. All right, so can I, since it's the internal controls checklist and it's under our action agenda, could we just have a motion maybe to put it on the board agenda for next month?
Quarter times.
Can I ask why we would? We got it in our packet. Why wouldn't we just approve it tonight? We should have all had a chance to review it.
Well, one simple question I have is, are any of the answers different than they were last year?
Not substantially. I think I did update a few pieces here and there, but I mean, it's essentially the controls that we follow and our procedures really haven't changed. There's been some updates as far as the substance, but I didn't do a year-to-year comparison on every single line, so I don't.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear, actually.
What, that he didn't do a line-by-line comparison?
That you didn't just copy last year's survey.
That's not the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah. That's all I need to hear is you didn't copy last year's.
Right.
It was not a copy paste. So maybe you can catch a few irregularities, but I mean, essentially it just goes through from A to Z, who has access to different functions, from who controls the checkbook, who runs payroll, who does accounts payable, who opens the mail, and what is that procedure or process like? Do we have tax information for our vendors, such as W-9 forms? Are the checks in our checkbook pre-numbered? So it has a lot of tedious questions about how we do record keeping, how our finance office is structured, and who's responsible for what. And to the best of my knowledge, I explained answers to those questions as best I could. So
yeah, I mean, not to be glib, I've seen this list, you know, before in other board meetings as well. The question I always have at the end of this is, does the state publish the right answers? You know, it's a state's questionnaire, but does the state publish what the correct answers are? You know, if somebody's marking a checkbox on one side or the other, it doesn't say, "Oh, you win a prize, you got the right answer."
Right.
And here's why. You know.
Some of the questions, just from my opinion, are a little bit interesting. The third to last from the end on page 2 is, have you questioned if the lifestyle of any associate reflects their normal income? I mean, I just find that to be an awkward question, but
right,
I answered it truthfully. So
that's sort of what I'm driving at. Is that, you know, they don't give you a score sheet for what the correct answers ought to be.
But I guess that's your job as the board, right?
Yeah, all of us financial experts that we are.
Right.
So, what is the board's pleasure?
I make a motion that we approve it.
Okay.
I looked at it and it looks okay.
That's okay. All right. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the internal controls checklist. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further conversation or discussion or questions? Judd, is your hand up or okay? Seeing no hands raised, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. Okay, that is the end of our action agenda item. We're moving into the informational agenda and reports to the board. There were numerous reports in the board packet. Does anybody have any questions, concerns, thoughts? Kim and then Lorraine.
I see that David's not on line with us as the adult education coordinator, and I have a couple questions regarding that. Dana, you might be able to answer them. It looks like they put together an advisory group that consists of people from Porter Hospital and the Career Center, and I'm just very interested who is in that group.
I don't have the names of the actual representatives off the top of my head, so I can't provide that right now, but I can get that from David, and we will circulate that to the board so you can get that information.
And I'm very interested to find out what courses they're talking about, you know, what direction they're going in. And the reason for that is Suzanne and I sit on the Patient and Family Advisory Board over there and are very, very willing to join that group, coordinate some other questions to make that process a little easier. They have some new personnel over there that are pretty interested in forming a partnership, and I'm glad that's happening. But that was my big question.
So what I can say, and I don't know that this is exactly answering your question, Kim, but Porter, Adult Ed, and our secondary programs have met a couple of times. We've met with a number of members of the Porter staff, and they are very interested in supporting an expansion of our medical professions and providing opportunities, additional opportunities for students to earn industry recognized credentials, particularly in the area of medical assistant, as different from an LNA. And so there are dialogues going on about how we can incorporate that curriculum. But the last meeting that we had as a large group consisted of probably 15 members of Porter, upper administration, as well as folks who do support for trainees. And on our end, it included, I believe, Jay, David, myself, Jen Baker, and I don't remember whether Len Schmidt was part of that group or not, but there were approximately somewhere between 15 and 20 people collaborating on the type of direction in which student training, both at the adult ed level as well as the secondary level, should be occurring, so that we can encourage more people to go into the profession and provide the qualified training that they need to step into the job market.
Well, I know it's important to Porter to retain some of the people they have already, and had the opportunity today to have blood drawn, and there was somebody shadowing who was an assistant. And, you know, my conversation with her is, you know, are you going to train to be a phlebotomist or whatever? And she said, no, she was actually from one of the practices and was going to get an accreditation. And so they clearly want to retain their people. And if there's any other way to do that, it would be to provide other courses available.
And one of the things that they have also asked us is if we could provide be the training provider for them, so that they could upskill. They believe that they have qualified employees, and that those employees might look for advancement, and how we could partner to provide that training. So that's along those same lines. But I can certainly get you names for anybody that David has on his list.
Well, it's just helpful when Suzanne and I attend other meetings to be able to, you know, understand and who's spoken to whom, and, you know, a few of the players. It's very helpful.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that that David gives a list.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, board?
Is Jay online? I see him here. Or is he?
Yeah, he should be. He's muted. Jay, can you hear us?
He's probably.
Patrice needs to unmute the HCC 208.
We're unmuted. Sorry. Yeah, I'm here in A208 with Patrice.
Oh, hi. Just wanted to let you know, thanks a lot again for the newsletter. I think that's a great thing. I'm trying to push that over at Mount Abe to have them generate something similar to it every month. And You were noting that you didn't have access to the Starksboro FPF, and if you want to just, I mean, I'm taking the ball and putting it on FPF myself. I don't know if you want to just put me on your list when you send that out. I'd be willing to populate FPF with that.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you, Steve. And I will just let everyone know, we actually have a few other things we're going to be adding to the newsletter. So some things that have just come up recently that we want to make sure get in there. So I'll be sure to send it back out to everyone once you've added a couple other pieces.
Great, thank you. Lorraine?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm really enjoying the newsletter, and I was especially thought it was great that they had the engineering and architecture kids with the culinary arts doing that combined gingerbread house project. I thought that was a really creative and innovative way to have two different groups working together on a neat, as a baker who's never actually made a gingerbread house, I thought that was a really cool idea. So I don't know who thought of it, but I thought that was great.
Yeah, I believe, Ed Cagle, the person who's subbing for us right now for the year, he's the one who came up with it because it's something that his family has done for a number of years. And so he asked Woody if he'd be willing to collaborate on it. And that's what made it happen. So yeah, it was good experience.
Is their next project a gingerbread bridge that they would load? It would load until it broke.
There you go. Sounds good.
Any other? Oh, Nick, sorry.
No, I just put my hand up. I'd like to thank Austin for, I guess this could be his last report. And I'd like to thank him for his dedication to the center and wish him well in his future endeavors off the soccer field and the golf course.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Appreciate
Thank
the
you.
kind words. It's been a pleasure to work with you. So thank you.
We will miss you, Austin, but we do understand the need for being home with little ones, and so. Is there anything else? We have 3 things left on our agenda. We have other related to board operations, if there's anything there. Nick?
Yeah, we had a comment from Hugh McLaughlin at the last board meeting, and I think it would be nice if we responded, since he came directly to the board.
Mm-hmm.
I know Dana's spoken to him, but it might be good just to have a short summary response from Dana, appreciating Hugh's input, and maybe the board could take a review it and agree to it.
Okay. So some of what I wrote to the board is in response to Hugh's comments.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to read that, or.
I did read it, yeah.
And if you'd like, I'll read it to everyone, Nick, if that, and then the board can say if they, so what I wrote and sent to board members was, dear board members, first, let me thank you all for your dedication and hard work to not only the students of PAHCC, but to the staff and the community. This last year has been challenging with continued COVID concerns, lack of accessibility to ESSER funds that would have allowed for COVID expenses and maintenance to occur, as well as continuous changes in guidance from the AOE. But we have all soldiered on. Recently, the Addison Independent pointed out that we have been dealing with a lot of issues, and that as with anything that pertains to our personnel, they must work their course. We have addressed concerns as they arose. We have learned to speak as a board and to be careful in making sure that we handle ourselves with grace and while continuing to do our due diligence and board work despite the pressure from some. We were elected or appointed to ensure that the Career Center work is front and center in all of our decision-making processes, whether those decisions have been made about saving teacher positions in light of declining enrollment, working on and ultimately writing new vision and mission statements, supporting the staff's request to become a CP2 school, and supporting the creation of new community partnerships. You have not wavered. We have heard from some that there is a need to tighten the educational experience and ensure that all students receive a high-quality, equitable education. And so I challenge us as we start to think about the new year, board goals, and goals for our administrators, that we use these comments to increase student learning, to increase the overall experience, ensuring equity and fairness, as well as increasing access to all programs by a broader audience of students that can learn how to advocate for themselves in their chosen professions. Again, I want to say thank you for your time, your questions, your thoughts, and your patience in a system that at times feels like we are just in a holding pattern, awaiting the decisions of others, while others are pushing, wanting the pace to move faster and not understanding that there is a process. I could not ask for a better board to serve with. The brutal honesty of our conversations, while the topics may be challenging, you handle them all with courtesy and respect, not only for each other, but for our differing viewpoints. I would also like to say to the public that has read the paper, we have too. We have heard the concerns and have and will continue to work with the administration on them. We ask that you allow us to continue our work, and we will let you all know once it is complete. And then I just ended it with thank you again for the opportunity to serve as your chair during these times, Suzanne. So, I mean, Hugh's comments, he did bring up some comments about how things are not necessarily equitable, and he would like to see things change. And I know Dana spoke with him. And so I know that Dana told me at least that they had spoken, they had a great conversation, and that things that were noted that they could work on that has been added to the list to be worked on. So,
and he was very gracious. He spoke to me and said that there were a couple of things that he mentioned that perhaps were predicated on misinformation, and that he will share his thoughts with us in a more proactive way. And I thought that that was very gracious. So we had a very good conversation that was centered on students and mutual understanding. So I felt that he was extremely responsive, and he appreciated my reaching out to him to get additional feedback. So it was a very good experience.
Okay. So
Nick, would you like a further statement, or?
No, I maybe we can reflect that in the board minutes that Dana's had a discussion and has listened to Hugh's comments and the proactively.
Yep.
That would be great.
I think we could just ask to maybe be kept up to speed on any future developments.
Yeah.
So, anything else, board, under the other related to board operations? Seeing no takers. Policy 4.1 governing style. Who wants to take that one on? Judd, I'm not going to ask you because you didn't get to see the whole of the meeting. So, Kim, are you raising your hand to take it on? Okay.
Yes, I am. Very well run. I think the information we provided to the public hopefully will answer some of their questions. We are listening. We hear you. I want to thank Suzanne for the last couple of weeks, especially the underlining conversations that she's had with legal have been tremendously difficult, but at the same time, very productive. I think I appreciate the board taking the time tonight to listen to everything and ask obviously very intelligent questions, and especially about the budget and the mechanics. And I want to compliment Austin for presenting something that you can read and easily follow. And, you know, that has been a long road to get it to that place, and to Dana with your input. I think it's helpful as a board, again, to be able to share that with the public. It's very easy to follow, and I appreciate that. Everybody's time, you know, in these difficult times, and we're still plowing through it. I think everybody appreciate you being here. I think, you know, as we are down in members, I think it's important for us to remember that, and still feel like we can recruit people to maybe come and join us. That's an important place that we kind of forget, that there are people out there who would like to come and join our board. So keep your ears and eyes open. I think we have, what, 3 openings at this point? We need somebody from Virgins as a community at large member, and 2 business
members.
Thank you. But anyway, other than that, can't say enough. You guys all do really, really good work, and thank you very much for your committee assignments and those types of things. And they do matter, especially to us who aren't on some of those committees, to know that good people are there and making decisions for us as a group, as a school. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
May I have a motion from the board to go into executive session for negotiations and personnel?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to go into executive session for negotiations and personnel per 1 VSA 313A 1B negotiations and 1 VSA 313A3 personnel. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. So Dana, if you would like to move or someone, whoever is at the helm of the controls.
That's Patrice, I believe, this evening.
Okay, Patrice, would you move the board into a room and give us 5 minutes and then bring Dana in? Please.
Yes, of course, I will do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jay, you look lonely though.
I didn't even realize it was Jay sitting there.
No, I didn't.
I was like, who's sitting there with a red shirt on?
And there's a sort of mask there, yeah.
Suzanne, do you need me to stay around?
I don't think so, Jay. So why don't I say you can go home? As long as once Dana comes into the executive session, if he has the controls, he can move us. And then Patrice could disappear too, if she would like.
So yeah, if you want, then have Patrice turn over the hosting to me, and then just let me know, Suzanne, when you want me to come in.
Looks like we're all back.
Missy finally gave up.
Yeah, Missy left.
She had to leave. Her kids were popping in and out every now and then. They needed supper. So I just wanted to thank you for your work tonight and remind everyone that the board has continued to work through personnel issues in our executive session, and we continue to stand by our previous statement that was made to the Addison Independent. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Tim. Is there a Judd seconded it? I'm presuming that there's no discussion on that. You're all in favor?
All in favor.
All
Aye.
right.
I'm opposed.
Happy New Year.
Okay.
Happier
Lorraine,
New
put
Year.
yourself down as one.
Happy New Year.
No, I changed my mind. I'm in favor. Okay.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.